Good afternoon, everybody. We're just letting everybody get connected. Reminder that we're asking your cameras be turned on so we know you're here and having the time of your life at the home ARP training. All right. Holly, how's it looking in the waiting room?
Just one more person joining it. Oh, yep, that's it.
All right. All right. Well, I am gonna get started here in just a second.
Holly, you sound
Oh,
really good on the radio.
oh, you heard me? Oh, good. Tom, you should tell everybody what you're talking about. Her debut.
She was talking about the hunters for the deer meat for the hungry.
Yes, Sportsmen Against Hunger. Holly
Thank
was
you.
representing all of us on the radio over the weekend. Thank you, Holly, for doing that.
No problem.
All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. I will be your host for today. My name is Andrea, and I'm the executive director of our statewide association. And can you find folks all see that promise of community action right there? All right, so let's have at it. Join me. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. Thank you for those that were able to join. For those that aren't familiar, that is our promise of community action. And we start all of our CAP-ND meetings reciting that promise. Just helps ground us all in the same place. So why are we all gathered here today? We are gathered to talk about our new statewide program. It's very exciting. We have been working on this, it feels like, for the longest time, and this is our first conversation with the network. But this is our program launch, folks. We are launching into home ARP supportive services. This is going to be our new statewide program starting January 1, 2025, and going through the end of 2027. I want to acknowledge Bridget and Jennifer Henderson, who are on the call today from North Dakota Housing Finance Agency. Housing Finance Agency is the reason we are all here, folks. Housing Finance actually received, I think it was requests totaling over $8 million from 13 different organizations across the state. And they graciously granted us an opportunity to work with them on this home ARP program. So Jen, Bridget, everybody at Housing Finance, just a huge thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. We're really excited to work with you. Next order of business, a new member of the CAP-ND team. Welcome, Safari Berry. Safari is going to be our new statewide home art program coordinator. Many of you know Safari. She is a member of the team at Red River Valley Community Action in Grand Forks, and she's still going to be a member of the Community Action team. She's just going to be in a different role. Safari just celebrated her fourth official year with the network, but she does have an added bonus year, a fifth year. Safari initially came to our network as an intern. Many of you also work with the SSVF program, and you know Safari and all of her leadership duties that she has in her portfolio for that program. Safari will be maintaining those duties, so she'll be wearing a couple of hats. And Safari, the last thing I wanted to say was that you have an adoration for HMIS. making you the perfect fit for this role. So welcome, Safari. We are very, very excited to add you to the team. Today's guiding principle, folks, we just don't know what we don't know. And we are all going to be learning together. And we're going to be getting into some pretty technical stuff today. And it might feel a little overwhelming, but I promise you, we are all learning it at the same time. So just hang in there. We're going to get through it together. And really, what I want you to be mindful of is that we are going to be spending the month of December really learning together. Yes, we are going to deploy home ARP supportive services on January 1. But folks, we're not going to have 300 people at the door ready to sign up. So we're just going to take this step by step and we're going to learn together. Today is the first training of 4 that we have scheduled throughout the month of December. And the ground rules for these trainings are we're just going to practice all of these things that you see on your screen. We're going to give grace to one another. We're going to be kind. We're going to practice patience, teamwork. We're going to be a team trying super duper hard to steer clear of rabbit holes because there's going to be 1 million potential scenarios that we could possibly cover. But just be mindful that we're all here for the same reason, right? Across the state, no matter what community action agency you're with, we're all here to see our clients be wildly successful. And now I'm going to turn it over to our CAPND board chair, Irv Bren, out of our Dickinson agency. So Irv.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thanks to all of you for being here to our initial home ARP training. Also, thank you to Jennifer and Bridget, North Dakota Housing Finance, for selecting CAPND as the grantee and giving us the opportunity to deliver these services. So we're going to give us our best shot. We have a lot to learn. It's a new program. Excuse me. It's a new program for CAPND. But within our ranks of agencies, I know some of us do have experience working with HUD and some of the nuances they may have. And again, others may not. So we need to be patient. We need to all kind of move through the training together. And the ones that have some experience certainly help those that don't, and share your knowledge if you have anything to share. I mean, that can come up with the greatest outcome for us as agencies and also for our clientele. We're here to learn HUD requirements, and by doing that, hopefully we can do the best that we can for our clients and make their life a little better. You're going to get a ton of reading material, and it's not just for you to receive in your inbox and not print it, not read it. It's there for your reading pleasure. It's important. Don't expect to know the program in its entirety if you do not take the initiative, read your materials, participate in the weekly or bi-weekly calls, however often they are. There'll be more discussion on that. If you have questions, ask the appropriate people. Just do not ignore and think it'll just happen. You need to ask the questions. My counterparts, executive directors, we are here to provide the oversight, and we do want to make this successful, but please check in with your staff on a regular basis. Hear them out, what's working, what's not working. And we certainly want to do the best that we possibly can with this funding source. We need everyone to be engaged 100%, and I know you all will. And by doing that, how can we fail? So with that, thank you again for being here today, and I'll turn it back to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Irv. Appreciate that. And there's no way we're going to fail. We're community action. We rise to the challenge all the time. So I personally know, and you all do too, we're going to knock this out of the park, folks. So let's just do a broad overview of what we're going to be doing with Home Art Supportive Services. And just know that there's going to be way more information coming, right? We have 3 more trainings happening in December, and we're going to have staff meetings and all kinds of opportunities for us to spend lots of time together. So Home ARP, this is homeless funds under ESG, and many of you on the call know ESG with expanded populations. We're going to focus on rapid rehousing and prevention. We're going to start the program January 1, and it's going to go through the end of December 2026. Supportive services that are available: rent, deposit, rent arrears, and utilities. Again, be mindful, folks, you're going to get a ton of information about each of these items, right? So we're just doing bird's eye view right now, okay? Limited assistance. This is a key message here within Home ARP. Home ARP is not intended to pay for all of the things, all of the time, for all of the people, forever until the end of time. And I know many of you on the call very, very well, and that's our dream. We would love to be able to help folks until the end of time, but that's not the intention of this program. We are here to set folks up for success. We're like a triage, and then we're going to help folks do what they need to do to help them into that realm of self-sufficiency. Payments to landlords. Your agencies are going to be issuing payments directly to the landlords, okay? You're not going through any type of portal or anything like that to make payments to landlords. Speaking of portals, no portals for clients, no portals for landlords. Portals are just not a part of the Home ARP program. Case management is going to be required for all Home ARP participants. Prioritization and coordinated entry. While coordinated entry is not part of this Home ARP process, we're going to be learning together more about CARES and how we could potentially incorporate some of the work that's happening there. Throughout the duration of this project, we're going to be utilizing best practices. We're deploying best practices from all of the other programs that we have all successfully administered for a number of years together. The success that we have here with Home ARP, folks, this is going to do so many great things for our network. It's going to lead us to future opportunities. We all want a long-term rental assistance. We know that that's where our clients' needs lie. Our needs assessment data shows us that. Housing finance data shows us that. All of the data shows us that affordable housing is an issue, and we all want to help people who are experiencing poverty navigate those challenges. So again, we're going to go in depth on all of these items. Don't panic. This is just intended to be a bird's eye view. Bird's eye view of policies. Qualified folks in the Home ARP supportive services programs are eligible to receive some rental assistance. We can go up to 12 total months of rental assistance. We can also help with security deposits, rental arrears, first and last month's rent, utilities, utility deposit, and moving expenses. Again, bird's eye view, we're going to take a super deep dive into all of these policies over the next several weeks together, which leads me to, I'm sure many of us are waiting with bated breath, the policy manual. This is coming soon to an email near you. And as Irv mentioned, the expectation is that we're all reading the policy manual. We're all familiarizing ourselves with the expectations of the program. So when we're going through the policy manual and we're learning more about the program nuances, this is going to be the key message here, folks. It's more resources for less people. That's key message. More resources, less people. And I'm going to get into a few more high points, and then we're going to dive into who qualifies for the home art program. So again, I talked about case management being a requirement of the program. High points, and we're going to get in a lot of discussion about case management over these next several trainings. But we are expected to engage in case management for all home art participants. We're going to be utilizing our whole family approach, progressive engagement. It is an expectation that we are connecting clients with mainstream and other benefits. We are going to need to meet with our clients at least once per month, and we're going to have a plan in place on how we're going to assist folks. How are they going to be retaining permanent housing once they leave the home art program? Because remember, we're here to help folks move into that realm of self-sufficiency. So as case managers, you folks are going to be addressing all relevant items in that plan. Everything from current and expected income. Are folks even on assistance right now? Should you help them get connected with assistance? Lots of things that we're going to have to cover within case management. We'll talk about high points of TFA. Again, we're going to talk so much about TFA. For those that aren't familiar, TFA is our internal language. It stands for Temporary Financial Assistance. So high points of TFAs. We're going to be paying rents, and they're going to have to be fair market rents. Rent reasonableness is also going to play a role here, and we're going to get into that specifically in a little bit. We'll be able to help folks with 3 months of rental assistance with possible expansion after a recertification. And Holly is probably going to unmute and say, recertification is not the right word. And she would be right. I just caught that, Holly. Let's call it a reevaluation. We're going to be able to help with security deposits worth no more than 2 months' rent. We can help with first and last month's rent, but only if that's a necessity for them to secure the housing. Rental arrears, we can go up to 6 months worth of arrears. No late fees, folks, and we're going to get into more of that, but please put that like pin in your brain about the late fees because we're going to talk more about that. We're going to be able to help with utility deposits, utility payments, gas, electric, water, sewer. We can help with moving expenses, hiring a rental truck, a moving company, temporary storage. But again, be mindful, we are not here to pay for all of the things, all of the time, for all of the people until the end of time, okay? Limited funds is a reality. Housing Finance Agency only had so much money to give, so we do need to work within the confines of our budget. Folks that are in the home art program cannot be receiving TFA. Like, here's a great example. Let's say they're on a housing voucher. We would not be able to pay for their rent if they're on a housing voucher. No duplication of benefits. And the other thing that I'd really love you just to kind of put on the back of your brain, put a pin in it. Remember that the North Dakota Rent Help Stabilization Program still exists. That's still an option for folks. Let's talk about documentation. This is HUD funding. And like Irv, you mentioned, a lot of us have a lot of experience with HUD, and some of us don't have a lot of experience with HUD. I am here to tell you that HUD loves their documentation. So documentation is going to be vast, and it's going to be plentiful, and it's non-negotiable. So I think the sooner we all just accept that reality and move on, the better we're going to be as a team. Everything is going to require documentation, folks. There's just no getting around it. And I super duper promise you that Bridget and Jen Henderson have done and continue to try to do everything they can to make this program easier on us. They have heard how intense the documentation piece is, and wherever they've been able to accommodate us, they have already done so. So please just accept the reality and let's move on to data. Data is another non-negotiable. You'll remember I said a few slides ago, what we're all working as a team to do is set up our network to be able to support clients in a long-term rental assistance program. So data is going to be critical. It's going to establish a foundation for our potential growth. And what Jennifer and Bridget have challenged us with is what changed because someone participated in home ARP. And Cap and D has told them, well, they're going to be helped into the realm of self-sufficiency because of home ARP. And they know that and they believe that, but we're going to have to really lean in and prove it, you guys. So data is going to be ridiculously critical and essential to our success here. We're going to be using two main sources of data tracking. It's going to be HMIS. And remember, we have a number one fan on the call. That's Safari. She likes HMIS. We have CAP 60. So both of those data, notice I didn't say there were big fans of CAP 60 on the call. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. There's plenty of you on the call that love CAP 60 as well. HMIS is where we're going to track our services, our eligibility, all the demographics. CAP 60, the short Cliff Notes version is everything we put into CAP 60 feeds our annual report. So we're going to be tracking services. We're going to be talking or tracking the self-sufficiency matrix in there, goals, outcomes, all of that. Now, right out of the chute, how we're trying to set this up is so data is not being entered in a duplicative way by staff. So Safari is going to tackle the HMIS data, and you at your agencies are going to be tackling the CAP 60 data. Again, bird's eye view, folks. Mark your calendars for December 17th because that's our training when we're going to be getting into CAP 60. A lot of that setup in CAP 60 has already been started, and the expectation is that we're putting in really good data that has integrity, that you have done a quality assurance check at your level, because we know, you guys, garbage in, garbage out. So we are not paying for all the things all the time, always for all of the people. We're not going to get away from documentation, and our data is super duper important. For those that work with the SSVF program, you know that we've transitioned to a paperless system called doc management. Somehow, somewhere, someday, the goal is for doc management to be a part of the home ARP program. But that somehow, somewhere, someday is not today, folks. We have a lot of other things that we need to get done first. So just be mindful of that. Let's talk about home ARP communication strategy. So we have a lot of folks on the call today. How are we all going to stay connected and in the loop? Well, we all obviously play a role in that, right? As the association, I send, and you could ask any director, I send a copious number of emails to them. So that is going to be a number one written communication strategy. The CAP&D board, and for those that don't know, the CAP&D board, that's comprised of all of the executive directors from each of our 7 community action agencies. So those folks will be receiving the key updates, especially related to funding. And directors, that onus is on you to please stay attentive to this content and help keep everything on track at your agencies. For the case managers and their supervisors that are going to be working with the home ARP program, we're going to have bi-weekly staff meetings, and this is going to be the main source of information dissemination to you folks that are booted and suited on the ground deploying home ARP. Meetings are going to start Monday, January 13th at 11 Central, 10 Mountain, and we're going to meet every 2 weeks. And cameras are going to be required, you guys, because we all got to show up and we all got to lean in. And I know we've gotten so comfortable with SSVF and some of our other programs, but I need signals from all of you that you're engaged and you're leaning in with me when we're on these trainings. So cameras are definitely going to be a requirement. We're going to be talking about policies. We're going to be answering questions. We're going to be doing trainings. For the fiscal friends that are on the call today, we have transitioned effective January 2025 into a monthly meeting schedule with the CAP&D Fiscal Committee. So that committee is comprised of all of the fiscal directors from across the state. We are going to be meeting the second Thursday of every month. The first meeting is January 9 at 10 Central, 9 Mountain. You folks have already received that calendar invite. And a reminder that the next fiscal meeting, the in-person meeting, is scheduled for December 12th and 13th in Fargo. And Jen and Bridget are already planning to join. Safari will be there. The whole CAP&D team will be there, and we'll be talking a lot about home ARP. So this is the communication strategy, and we can obviously evolve as we work together. But you have just as much responsibility in this as I do. So you do need to read the information and you need to stay attentive to the content. So for the remainder of December, we're going to have a learning adventure together. You'll remember I said we're going to spend the whole month of December learning together. We're going to dive into the program. We're learning as a team. And folks, it is a lot. HUD is just a lot, but we are breaking it down. We're going to go step by step. We're meeting today. We're going to meet again on Thursday, and we meet on the 10th, and we meet again on the 17th. So your patience and your teamwork and your positivity are just going to be crucial to help push us over the finish line here. So I'm counting on all of you. To kind of outline what these trainings are going to look like. Today, Jen and Bridget are going to be defining what we call QPs, qualifying populations. We're going to talk about income requirements. When we come back on Thursday, it's going to be related to forms, paperwork, things that we need to do in order to be in compliance with the program. We're going to come back on the 10th, and it's going to be pretty heavy with the policy overview. We're going to be talking about setting SMART goals with clients, case notes, different kinds of things like that. On the 17th, like I mentioned, that's when we're really going to be diving into CAP 60 and also SharePoint. I think just about everybody on the call has been involved with a statewide program, and we utilize SharePoint to share all of our documents and to transfer files. That's going to be the exact same here as well. So Faith, I think we're ready for the first poll. And I will let you pull that up. So take a minute, folks, and see the poll on your screen. And we're just trying to gauge a little bit where everybody is at. So go ahead and fill in your answers. Hey, all right. Somebody reviewed materials in advance. Thank you.
Andrea, we have one more poll to give out that I just added last minute. And
Oh, okay. You
From
mean
Jen.
at the end of the whole training or what?
Probably right after this one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic.
I have it. It's starred. We're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Great. Oh, this is good. We're going to give it just another minute here for folks to fill out. Looks like we're spread across the map a little bit. Most of us are feeling confident, very confident, but we're still a little anxious. That's super fair. And I promise you, you're not going to be fed to the wolves, folks. We're gonna get there together. Okay, lots of you read the materials in advance. Thank you. That's going to do nothing but help us. Everybody answered it correctly. Remember, this is More resources to fewer people. Case management is required. Perfect. All right, and we can go up to 12 months with the home ARP rental assistance. We can do 3 months right out of the chute with the potential to go up to 12. And we're going to have our staff meetings every other week for case managers. And for the fiscal directors, those are going to be monthly. Thanks, Faith. Do you want to take that down and then put up Holly's surprise poll?
I hope
Oh,
that
good.
worked, right?
Yeah. How many
Okay.
years of experience do you have with HUD, if any?
You guys will have to share those results with me when they come in.
Yes. Can you see them like on the screen?
We
No,
cannot see the
when
results.
when we end the poll, I can share the results with
Oh,
everybody.
perfect. Perfect. Yes. Will you do that? I'm sorry, folks. I thought we were all seeing it.
No, you were hogging the answers.
I was. They looked good. I'll tell you that. I will promise you that. Bonnie, we don't have a field on here for your 5+ years. Are you Bonnie HUD experience? That should have been one of the options.
There you go. I was gonna say.
Okay, perfect. Faith, I wonder, Faith, can you share the results from the first one?
I
Also,
should theoretically, they changed some of the functionality, but I should be able to.
they did. They totally did. I saw that.
Am I good to, has everybody had a chance to answer? Can I end this poll? How are we
I
feeling?
think you can end it. I think you're good.
Okay. Okay, can you see it?
Ooh, yes, we sure can.
Okay, so this is
Cool.
Jen's HUD poll. Um, the short answer, I can put view details, but you might have to do that on your own screen.
I can't on my own screen, so I would love if you could view details.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
Maybe.
send it to you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't matter. We can have people type in the chat for something else to do. How many years
Absolutely.
do you have experience with ESG, North Dakota Homeless Grant, home program, anything HUD? If you do, say I do, and how much time? Just out of curiosity.
And here are the results from the first poll. Can you see them? Ta-da! Magic.
Magic.
Thank you, Faith. Appreciate your magic.
Only if it were really magic. Alas, it's technology, and sometimes it chooses to work, and sometimes it chooses not to.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and Jen, we will turn it over to you and Bridget.
So if I hit that button, is it asking you? Yep, there it is. So
Yep, we can see perfectly.
awesome. So one of the things that I wanted to test before we get down the chute is if I go like this, can you see me slide something over the top of the PowerPoint presentation? Perfect.
Yes. Yep.
Okie dokie. Thanks, Andrea, Irv, Faith, Holly, Safari. We have been working our butts off on home ARP. So first off, I just want to say Jennifer Henderson, Director of the Community Housing and Grants Management Division. You'll notice that I am doing a lot of talking about home ARP and going through all the ins and outs of it. And I just want you to know that Bridget's the program administrator for this program, and she will be the point of contact. But as you all are learning a brand new program, so is Bridget. So Home ARP is an ARPA funded program in which the federal government says we're going to not use existing programs. We're going to create a whole new thing and give it to the home administrators and have them go ahead and roll out a program. And so that's what we've been trying to do. And Home ARP, because we are the administrators of home, came to our agency, and there's some different complexities to it that this is kind of one of our later things to roll out, the supportive services part. But Bridget will be the main point of contact. But she also is learning this brand new program as we are kind of creating it together with you. So I just want you to know how important your relationship is with us, because we are creating this with you as well. And so there's times where we've kind of said, well, we think you should do this, right? And we just got off a call today that says, I don't know if that really makes sense for us to do this, because this is how our workflow is. And so we're still working through those things as we are coming together as a group. So that's kind of why Andrea is having this rolled out in pieces, because there's things that are going to be coming along that we'll kind of figure out as we finalize some of our program materials, between your program materials that CAP is working so hard to create, and the program materials that we still have under draft as well. So we appreciate your patience, your flexibility. We are learning together. This is never going to be a gotcha situation that you didn't do something that we said, because this is probably the most partnership type of a program that I've ever been able to be a part of, in that, we're making these rules up together so that we can all understand what needs to come through this to have us be compliant with HUD. So with that, my role today is to give a very brief overview and talk about the qualifying population definitions and the documentation requirements. And then we're going to go through income requirements as well. One of the things that I noticed in that poll is that there's a lot of people that might not have a lot of experience with the income qualification part. So the only thing that I want to say to that is I'm going to be pretty high overview and very simplistic about income qualification today, because I think there might be some room for more details to come through when we start talking about forms, when we start talking about what a participant file needs to have and things like that. There will be some pieces that connect together with income qualifying that are part of those other steps that we're going to be taking. So please don't worry if it seems real scary right now. We're going to try to make it simple as we can, and we'll work through it as you learn as well. So as I mentioned, Home ARP, basically they took the Emergency Solutions Grant Program and the Home Program, and they smushed them together, and then HUD created some additional definitions of things to just really have a lot of fun with a whole new program. So for qualifying populations is basically taking the at-risk of homeless certification and the homeless certification, combining them together, and then adding a few more eligible participants to it. So the point of this Home ARP program is to really expand who is considered at risk of homeless and who is considered needing assistance that can be provided in the homeless prevention world of Emergency Solutions Grant. It, as Andrea has said many times, it is not, it's temporary. It is not long-term assistance. And so what's going to be super important for you as you're working with your clients is to identify who probably needs longer-term services and get them referred to that and help them with their budget so that they can be stable. That's going to be super important with this program. The legislative intent for Home ARP is that all 4 qualifying populations are intended to be served under the program. So the allowable activities are rental housing, non-congregate shelter, supportive services, and then tenant-based rental assistance. Because the ERA funds that Health and Human Services is administering through rent stabilization. We did not choose to go down the TBRA path because there was rental assistance kind of already out there. We already have a project selected under rental housing, and that is a very specific project, Cove Lane in Fargo. So it's for domestic violence, transitional housing. The non-congregate shelter project, we do have one that's in progress in Dickinson. Hopefully we can get that moving along, but we have some funding dedicated to that. And then the supportive services. Because the rental housing is for a specific population and the non-congregate shelter kind of is a specific population, the home ARP supportive services is our way as a state that we told in our allocation plan that we are going to serve all 4 qualifying populations. So your program is meant to serve all 4 of those populations on a first come first serve type of a basis. Let's see. So talking about the qualifying populations, you'll see here, and you should have received the qualifying population certification and a few other documents. It might not hurt for you to have those kind of on a screen if you have multiple screens, so you can kind of take a look, because I might bring them up as well, and to kind of piece together what these qualifying populations mean. But we're going to go through each of these 4 populations. A number of these populations, 1, 2, and 4, have subsets of each of those definitions. But what I'm just going to say is it is homeless and at-risk defined, those definitions combined together, plus adding a few more. So the qualifying population 1 has 3 categories: literally homeless, imminent risk of homeless, or homeless under other federal statutes. And with the homeless under other federal statutes, it's unaccompanied youth under 25 or families with children who do not qualify as literally homeless, and meeting all 4 of the subsets that are on this screen here. So when you look at your qualifying population certification, we've got all of those literally homeless listed as A, B, and C. So all of the subsets are on there. And this at-risk of homeless certification identifies for you what that means to meet those. So an individual who lacks a fixed regular nighttime residence is literally homeless, and you must certify that with one of the following documentation. So this document that you're going to have completed for every individual that you are serving, this is going to be how you document their eligibility under one of the 4 qualifying populations. And it also provides you some examples of the documentation that will meet those standards. Holly, you're basically tasked with identifying what all of that is and how your organization's policies are going to be drafted to meet these expectations, right? So I just want to give an invitation to Holly to pipe in if there's anything that I'm saying that's going to contradict where you're going with your policies. Be noisy about it so that we can make sure we're on the same page with that.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. So the other document that you got in advance that I'll just bring over to that I think is helpful, I used it to develop the qualifying population certification, but basically this document and how you read it as well is qualifying population 1. They talk about parts. So part 1, literally homeless; part 2, imminent risk of homeless; part 3, homeless under other federal statutes. So that matches A, B, and C. So that's how you can kind of follow along with the certification document and the HUD guidance as well. What I want you to know is that this homeless, literally homeless, and imminent risk of homeless are the same definitions as your homeless certification document used to be for ESG. So there isn't a lot difference. You're going to notice a lot of the same forms will help you to identify or to prove that that person qualifies for these items.
Yes, and this form that she's showing, both of those forms are, if it's not on there, then it's not a qualifying population. And if you can't get the right documentation, then they're not going to be eligible because the QP1A, QP1B, you have to follow that SFN form to a T, or else, it's going to be denied. It's going to be turned down as not eligible. And
So
I'm
one of
sorry,
the
but I have to head out. So if you got any other questions, you're on your own.
We got you,
But-
Holly.
Okay, well,
I'm
that's all
sorry.
right. So qualifying population 1 does not have an income requirement. So what that means is for that household to meet the standards that are identified in that form, they just have to go back to it again. Have some either written observation or certification by that individual. The imminent risk of homeless, residents will be lost within 14 days. No subsequent residence has been identified, and the individual lacks resources and supports. And here's the documentation to help you get there. Homeless under other federal statutes. I do want to make sure it's really very clear that meeting the definition of homeless under other federal statutes, you must have a third-party verification that comes from the staff of that other organization. So an example might be YouthWorks verifying that they are serving that under 25-year-old household and that they are indeed homeless. So I think I just want to pause for a second here and see if there's any questions related to qualifying population 1 and the resources that are available to you to help you get to that point. And I'm going to ask Andrea to let me know if there is anything because I cannot see. I do not have enough screens.
I know, right? I know that's always the way. Tom asked if they had the document, and it's in the chat, Tom, so you have quick access to it there.
So qualifying population 2 is at risk of homeless. And again, this is very similar to the at risk of homeless certification that Emergency Solutions Grant or North Dakota Homeless Grant individuals would have used. The first one has an income requirement. So the individual or family that has an income at or below 30% area median income and does not have sufficient resources or support networks and meets one of the seven risk qualifying things. I'll show you the risks next, but the 7 risks are the same as the risks were for the at risk of homeless certification. Unaccompanied youth that are qualified as homeless under other federal statutes, or families with children that do not qualify as homeless, but qualify as homeless under McKinney-Vento. So just pointing out that if a school liaison who follows the McKinney-Vento has identified that child and family as homeless, that can fit into this definition. And if they have the 30% area median income, that would count. So these are the 7 conditions of housing instability. Those conditions are also on the QP certification form. So looking at it there, it does walk you through the having 30% area median income, lacking resources, and meeting one of the 7 risk factors. The risk factors are persistent housing instability, meaning they've moved for economic reasons more than 2 times. But it does go through what documentation is needed to meet that risk factor. Living in the home of another is another risk factor. Losing housing within 21 days, living in a rented hotel not paid for by a charitable organization, living in a severely overcrowded unit is defined by the Census Bureau, and we do describe what that means. And then what documentation is necessary for that. Exiting a publicly funded institution or system of care. So that includes a healthcare facility, hospital, mental health facility, a youth facility or a correction program. You need to have discharge paperwork for that. Or risk number 7, living in a household associated with instability and increased risk of homeless. And we have the example of being a young household with a young child and lacking transportation, things like that. That's a self-certification. Unaccompanied youth, you need verification of their homeless status by the agency administering that program. And same thing with the families and children with youth. The easiest qualifying population is population 3, which is domestic violence. And that is simply having one of these items, no income required. They need to just certify that they are fleeing domestic violence. And again, going back to the certification form, the documentation required, you're a non-victim service provider. So there's 3 options there for you. Oral statement, self-certification, that's repeated twice, but also something by the caseworker. There's 3 reasons that it could work for you. And then there's qualifying population number 4. So this qualifying population number 4 is really meant to grab other people who did not fit into qualifying population 2 or 1, quite frankly. But what it is if they had been previously helped, previously homeless, and now they're housed and they need additional services to prevent return to homelessness, they can be in the qualifying population 4. Qualifying population 4 also includes somebody who is at or below a 30% area median income and paying more than 50% of their household income towards rent. Or it could include somebody whose annual income is 50% AMI and has one of those risk factors 1 through 7 that the qualifying population 2 can use. So what is the difference between a qualifying population 2 and a 4, right? Because it seems like they're kind of similar, and they are. What I would say is if you are dealing with a qualifying, and I think it's going to be rare, but let's say you have a family that is 30% area median income, but you can't figure out how they meet one of these 7 things. Maybe they're living in their own home and there is nothing that says that they are going to be evicted soon. They haven't had to move for economic reasons. There's just no way to get one of these 7 conditions with that 30% household. Your next step then is to ask, okay, well, how much are you paying towards rent? What is your rent? Because if more than 50% of your family's income is being paid towards your rent, now you can be a qualifying population 4. So it really expanded, this qualifying population 4 just really expanded the number of 30% households that can be helped under the program. And then it said, okay, well, maybe you're not 30% median income anymore, but you have one of those risks. If you're 50%, you can be a qualifying population 4. So it's the same risk factors from qualifying population 2 for the 50% households. Does anybody have questions on that?
You can
So
put your
again,
question in the chat too, folks. We've got the chat open.
so just reiterating that point is that the qualifying population 2 and 4 are very similar. And basically, qualifying population 2, if you have a 30% household that doesn't meet one of the 7 conditions, then see how much money they are paying towards their rent, because perhaps they can be a qualifying population 4. Or let's say you have a household who is over 30% area median income, not by much, a few $1,000s even, they could qualify as a qualifying population for then if they have one of those 7 risk factors. I urge you to look at that qualifying populations documentation requirement in connection with the qualifying population certification, but also there's a home ARP qualifying populations at a glance that does do a good job of describing some examples as well. So between those 3 resources, it should be pretty robust as to how somebody and what qualifies as a qualifying population. But it is expanded more so. So that is all I had for qualifying populations, because I feel like your upcoming other trainings will probably go into some more details on working with participants and the documentation needs and things like that, because we're going to talk about some of the forms and things like that in the next training. So the next part is going to be talking about income requirements. What I am trying really hard to do with this initial training with you all is to briefly touch on the income and assets, but I'm not going to go into deep diving into the asset conversation, because what I want to say is I think you won't have to deal as much with people's assets, unlike those who are in more of the property management world. People who are nearing homeless or having some real difficulties paying their rent likely have depleted a lot of their assets already. And so I think those questions will be easier for you to answer than somebody trying to qualify their grandma for an affordable housing property. But what I will say is that the income qualification requirements for home ARP are the same as if you were trying to rent an affordable apartment under the low income housing tax credit, the home trust fund, any of those programs. The income calculation is exactly the same. But I'm going to try to keep this very simple. If we need to go into more detailed income and asset training, HUD has HOTMA income and asset training, which is super fun. Not really, that was being extremely sarcastic. But it goes into a lot of details, and I didn't want to go there because it's so heavily property management focused that it might scare people, and we want to just really be simple. So number 1 is Safari and Holly. I'm not sure who or what, but there should be some sort of a questionnaire that's being worked on that helps you to ask clients that you're working with what their income is and what their assets are, so that you can get some ideas of what needs to be verified. So do note that the individuals tell you what they have for income and what they have for assets. And through the answers to those questions, you will then know what you need to send out for verification or how you get a hold of that verification. But there is a handout that was sent to you, which is an income, right? Was it sent to you? Yeah. Income and asset inclusion handout, which basically lists all of the income and asset sources that should be included in the calculation.
I put it in the, Jen, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I put it in the chat as well.
Good. So it includes wages and salaries, benefits and pension, public assistance, other income, assets, including cash, checking, and savings. That's a really high level. Now, HOTMA takes place and is going to start here in January. And how that will affect you is really in the asset world. It's going to make things a little bit easier for individuals to not have to have their assets calculated. So HOTMA is going to be real important for everyone if you're dealing with individuals that have assets. Most of the time when I see emergency solutions grant, homeless prevention in families coming through, they barely have $200 in their checking account. So that's why I'm not wanting to focus so heavily on all of the asset ins and outs, because it's not likely that your families are going to have a lot to be working with, quite frankly. So income is income that is anticipated or projected to occur over the next 12 months. So sometimes we get parts of the story with income verification, and we have to annualize that so that we can come up with what that annual income will look like. So there's earned income and unearned income. Earned income is income for work performed. So wages, tips, compensation for work that they do. That does include Uber driving. It includes anything for doing some work. Unearned income is income from assets, Social Security, pension, welfare, allowances, unemployment. So unearned income means that you don't have to perform work to get it. It is a benefit of yours, or it's earned because you have income from assets. I want to mention that a zero income household is a household that says, I don't have any income. You definitely need to get further clarification from them as to how are you paying your bills? Are you receiving cash or non-cash contributions, gifts from somebody? Are you living off of your child support and disability payments? There still should be some form of income to pay your bills, or somebody might be helping you. Just make sure that you try to ask those more questions. Household income is income that is earned income from all household members over 18. So earned income, again, is compensation for work performed. So if a 15-year-old who lives in the house has a job and they're earning part-time income, their earned income is not counted. It's only for the members that are 18 and over, their employment income is counted. But unearned income from all household members is included. So if you have a child that receives Social Security or disability payments, that should be counted in the household's income. So the first thing with determining income eligibility is to figure out how big the household is. You have to know how many members are in the household for you to know what income limits that household needs to qualify under to meet that 30% or 50% area median income. It's all persons living in the unit. Children who reside 50% of the time are away at school. An unborn child counts as part of the household size. A military household member who is temporarily absent, but it does not include a live-in aide, a resident assistance, or guest. So this is the formula that can be used to help determine wages, and it's really dependent on how they are paid. So if they tell you that they get paid $15 an hour, there's a calculation to figure out what that annualized income should be. Same thing with weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, and monthly. So it is 52 weeks a year, 26 pay periods for a bi-weekly. Semi-monthly is 2 times a month. I do want you to know, so bi-weekly is every other week. Semi-monthly is twice a month. So if somebody says that they are paid twice a month, they are semi-monthly. Sometimes people get confused about how often they get paid. So make sure you can get that. Do you get every other Monday or just twice a month? Because sometimes there's 3 Mondays, right? So that 26 payments, that's 2 more payments that can make or break a household if you are needing to get to that 30% area median income. So just make sure that if there's any confusion, that you clarify 26 versus 24 pay periods makes a difference. And you can see that in this calculation, right? It's 26,000 versus 24,000 at that $1,000 per pay period. So it is preferenced that you receive income information through verifications, including a verification of income, pay stubs, an IRS 1099 statement. Those are all helpful ways to verify earned income amounts. A 1099 statement is something that individuals who work for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, they all should receive 1099s. Or they should be able to log into their app to show you what their recent payments are. So unearned income is Social Security or disability benefits. To verify that, you obtain a current award letter. You can log in to Social Security website to get that award letter. If somebody says they don't have one, they can create an account to get the most current letter. I know that there was some challenges with individuals not being able to get their award letter without logging in. Like the office used to send it out, and I don't think getting copies of that is as easy anymore. Logging into your account is going to be the easiest way to get your most recent statement if you don't have it in your hand. Social Security and disability have cost of living adjustments that come out annually. Typically in October, there's a publication that says what the COLA is going to be for the next year. In 2025, it's 2.5%. So what this means is if somebody doesn't have their award letter yet showing what their payments are going to be, and this is really bad timing because everybody should have their award letter that says effective December something 2024, your new payment will be X dollar amount. That includes the COLA already. So if anybody's letter doesn't say December of 2024 effective date, then that's when the COLA needs to be applied if there's an older letter. But that should be kind of wrapping itself up right now. And until the next COLA is published, you do not need to worry about COLA if you have a more current award letter. Bridget, pipe in if there's anything that I'm saying on that would be confusing.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. TANF payments are included as income, but SNAP benefits are not. Child support and alimony, you need to include the payments the household is receiving as income, not court ordered. So this is going to be a HOTMA change. So pre-HOTMA, you used to have to use court-ordered child support amount. Even if the person wasn't getting the court-ordered child support amount, you had to include that. HOTMA changes it, and since that's effective January 1st, I want to be sure that you guys know that child support and alimony are the payments the household is receiving. So you might have to have them show you a bank statement that you can see the child support payments going in, or logging into their child support account so that you can see what is being paid to them. But it is not the court ordered amount because that might be less than what they're actually receiving. So it's the amount they're actually receiving. I applaud this HOTMA change that they've made because there's lots of times where individual who is awarded child support is not receiving the amount that they are supposed to be receiving. So this is 100% a plus. So I want you to really, really key into that one. Unemployment, disability compensation, workers' compensation, severance pays, retirement plan payments. So if somebody is receiving periodic payments from their retirement account, that is income. And now we'll start talking about the assets a little bit. And I am crossing my fingers right now that I don't scare you guys. Assets is so ucky because they could get really complicated, but I'm going to try to just keep this really simple. Examples of assets are checking account, savings account, money market, even cash apps. So Venmo and Apple Pay, if they hold balances in there, GoFundMe accounts, direct debit express cards, all of those are considered assets. So if the value of assets, combined value of the assets is less than $5,000, we only need to include the actual income from those assets. That's the rule today. So what does that mean? When an individual says that they have a checking and savings and money market account, there may or may not be some interest that they earn on those accounts balances. The interest earned on those account balances is what would be the income. Now, vast majority of the individuals that you work with have free checking accounts and free savings accounts. There is not likely to be any interest being paid on those, but you can ask the question if they receive any interest on those accounts. Now, if they have money markets, I should have put CDs on this too. If they have money markets or CDs, there is likely going to be some earned interest on those accounts. But again, today, if they are less than $5,000, you only need to account the actual income. When HOTMA takes place, there's going to be some higher rules for income and assets calculations that instead of being under 5,000, it's under 50,000. So this is going to really expand the likelihood that you're not even going to have to worry about assets unless they're earning interest from it. So if a family's assets do not exceed $50,000, starting January 1st, they may self-certify the amount of their assets. Number two, if a household's non-necessary personal property doesn't exceed $50,000, they can be excluded from the net assets calculation. And I'll explain that a little bit better in a minute. And then part three is the imputed asset income. So if a household's income total exceeds $50,000, we have to use an imputed asset calculation. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. So I'd like to say this because Andrea said it a couple times. Put a pin in these assets. If you really come through with somebody that has greater than $50,000 of assets, I think we should stop and talk. And when I say we, I mean Bridget and Holly and Safari is who you should talk to, or whoever, you know, your supervisor is, but we might need to use caution in that asset verification. I just think it's going to be rare that you're going to find a family that's going to have more than $50,000 worth of assets. Tell me I'm wrong, anybody.
No, you are correct.
Right.
We've seen this time and time again. The 50,000 limit was, I think it was 50,000 for our IDA program. And like, it was so, I don't even know if we had a single person.
Yep. So what non-necessary personal property is a recreational vehicle, a bank account that is not your checking and your savings account. It's over and above that. Or no, bank accounts that are your checking and savings and stocks and bonds, recreational vehicles, boats, jewelry that's not your wedding ring, collectibles, gems, precious metals, and antique cars, things like that. So all of these necessary personal property, your family vehicle, even a bicycle, things you could use for transportation, your medical equipment, your computer, all of that is necessary personal property. So you don't even start counting your non-necessary personal property until you get to the fact that they might have a camper or a boat or a collection, which it's not too often that that's going to be. So here's an example of necessary and non-necessary personal property that still is at the, it doesn't even matter if it's 50,000, but it says since the total of that is less than 50,000, then it's not considered when calculating the net family assets. So they have a checking account, an engagement ring, and a boat. And so $20,000 of that is included as non-necessary personal property. It is not part of their asset calculation, so their total net family assets is considered zero. So when they're considered zero, you do not have to worry about an imputed income. You still have to worry about whether or not they receive any income directly from the asset. So again, going back to if the checking account has an interest rate on it and it's not a free checking account, then there might be something there, but it's very doubtful. Most people have free checking accounts, earn very little interest. It's not going to affect their income all that much. I doubt. So again, verification procedures and preference. Third-party verification is a preference. Pay stubs, 2 months consecutive, you must get an award letter, bank statements. The self-certification of income is the last resort. A certification of zero income is needed if somebody says, I don't have any income, and I'll show you why that form is going to be really important for you. Andrea, how are we doing for time? I am not paying attention.
We are super perfect on time.
Okay. So here's the certification of zero assets that I'm going to obviously visit with Holly, Safari, and folks, but I think it might be something that you might want to incorporate for any individual family that says we don't make any income. Because what it does is are you sure about that? And how do you pay for your household expenses? And it's just a trigger there's a lot of individuals who don't count DoorDash or other sporadic temporary type of employment like that as income, and it is income. It's earned wages. Same thing with a day laborer, somebody who just goes down to day labor every day to work for a few hours. That's income, and should be included in that. So this is just a way to kind of trigger, are you sure you have zero income? Now, can there be people who have absolutely no income? Yes. Get them to permanent financial resources, because this program will only be a Band-Aid for them, right? So that's the super important piece there, because this is not going to help those folks for very long at all. So I wanted to do a CPD income calculator with you all. So one of the things that we have said is going to be helpful in your income qualification process is utilizing HUD's CPD income calculator. And the reason why we're saying that that's going to be helpful is I will tell you that HUD loves to see it in their participant files. So when they're doing an audit, they think that this is just the cat's meow as far as you guys doing your due diligence and utilizing resources that you've been given from HUD, because HUD is super great at giving resources to people. But anyway, the CPD calculator is pretty nice because it does help to calculate things for you, and it also can return an ineligible kind of income qualifier for you. So it'll calculate all the things that you tell it, and then it'll say, yep, this person meets your current income limit. So that is super nice. So here's an example of a household. So Benny and June, and they have 2 kids. Benny works for Cenex and he gets $15 an hour. He works an average of 15 to 20 hours a week. June is working at $11.50 an hour, 35 hours a week. Boy is 10, girl is 5. Decided not to give them names. They have a checking account that pays 0 interest with a balance of $500 and a savings account of $250. June gets $100 a month for boy, and she's also disabled and gets $250 a month in disability benefits, and they receive SNAP benefits totaling $110. So this is the scenario that we're going to together put into the CPD income calculator to see what it returns for us. Oh. So well, since I have a lack of screens, I might need you all to tell me some of the things, but here is the HUD CPD income calculator. And Andrea, did you give folks this pre-training to kind of look
Yes.
at all?
Yep. There was the video was sent out, and then I just put the link to the calculator in the chat.
Okay. All right. So you have to register as a user. And once you do that, you can kind of go in and have your way at setting up a new one. So what's going to be super confusing until you just learn this part is we're going to have you go in using Emergency Solutions Grant. And the reason why is the home program is kind of weird and doesn't quite walk you through all the calculations properly, because in the home world, they are thinking you're using it for tenant-based rental assistance, which you're not. We're using it for homeless prevention, and it's just not conducive. So we're going to use it in their ESG. We're going to do initial intake on homeless prevention. That's going to be the best way for us to be able to select what that household is. So on this, I'm going to just create this ID here. What I can tell you is you can do a few different things. And I'm not sure if you have thought about, there's instructions being written, right, Faith? Were you writing some instructions on this?
Yes.
So in your instructions, you'll want to talk about what people should be doing with their characters. If it's the HMIS number, the client ID number, whatever you want to do to make sure that, because one of the things is this saves, you can go back in and look at it again if you wanted to. And so you're going to need some identifier that makes sense for your group to do. So we decided that it's Benny and June and boy and girl. So it is 4 household members. So you can, again, this member ID can be something related to their HMIS number, if they each get an HMIS number, or you can, Faith, decide that it just makes sense to go 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, doesn't matter. So your next thing is to select, Benny is the head of household, June is the co-head, and then boy and girl were both under 18. So, oops, yeah, that's right. Like that. So head, co, under 18. If they were over 18, you'd want to go there. So here's where we select that we are North Dakota. And I'll take Bismarck. And here's where we can do 30% or 50% area median income. So selecting the 30% will show us then what the 30% household limit is for a family of 4 using the 2024 income limits for Burleigh County, Bismarck. So what's nice about this is that it automatically helps you to identify that income limit that's applicable to this household. And you can select 50% if it's that qualifying population 4 at 50% that you were looking at. So this does do both of those. And so now the passbook rate today is 0.045. And we will keep you updated on what that is. But that changes, it's supposed to change once a year. And now is where I might need some help. So we'll say that Benny had the checking account. And I think we said it was what, $500? And he got 0 interest. And Benny works, so what did we say his was Senex hourly? $15 an hour. Was it 20 to 30 hours a week?
15 to 20.
15 to 20? Well, let's make him smaller then. So what do you do when we have 15 to 20 range? I would suggest that you ask more questions to try to figure out his average a little bit better. You can look at the pay stubs, right, and see how many hours he's being paid for and average them on those consecutive pay stubs.
We'll be averaging the pay stubs and putting the actual wage in the
Perfect.
weeks per year in here.
Okay. So we'll save him. So we've got his employment. He didn't have any other income. We'll give Sandy or June. We'll give June the savings account. $250 is what I said, 0 interest. June gets some benefits. What does she get? 110. Nope. She gets $250 for disability monthly. Right? Well, let's just do this. So here, if you were looking at her statement that reflected a COLA increase necessary, you could put that 2.5 here and the date that it starts like that. And then it will automatically calculate that COLA into your information. If you're looking at a current statement that already reflected this 2.5 increase, you do not want to put that in there. And we'll leave it out for this time. And she gets some child support of $100 a month. And they also receive SNAP benefits. Do we put SNAP benefits in this calculator? Anybody want to answer that? No, thank you. No. If it was TANF benefits, you would, but SNAP benefits, you do not. So I think that's all of their stuff. So it's going to calculate their assets, $750, well under the 5,000. So there's no actual income. And this calculator reflects the pre-HOTMA rule, which says we only need the imputed income if it's greater than 5,000. So I'm very, very hopeful that January 1, this will say 50,000 on here. Cross our fingers. Their wages and salaries, their total annual income. Oh, I forgot June's wages, didn't I? There's no wages for June. So we have to go back. To June. Because she's employed at Senior Living. 1150, 35 hours, 52 weeks. No overtime. There we go. Let's try to calculate that again. All right, so here we go. That income plus their benefits and other income from child support puts their annual income at 40,000. The income limit for a family of 4 is actually 32. And so this is a returning an ineligible example.
So Jennifer, I need to interrupt here. So let's say as an example, that was omitted. And if that was omitted, they would have been eligible. So we would have served them. So then when you get monitored, this would have been an ineligible, it would have been a finding basically. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. That's right.
Okay.
unless we could put them in a different category. So you remember, if this 4-person household, you had them at 30 and they're over income, what should your first step be, do you think? I would recommend you go and see if they qualify at the 50% limit. Because nothing changed, right? So now they're below.
But we
So
can
one help,
only, the 50% is only for QP4, and
that's
that's
right.
if they've already been assisted by another program.
Nope. So QP4 has an annual income of 50% below and meets one of the risk factors. So there's two pieces to this. They can be other families requiring assistance or other populations with the greatest risk of instability. So the greatest risk of instability is the 30% AMI and 50% of their income towards rent, or having 50% AMI and meeting one of the 7 risk factors that matches the HP2. So yes, if a family is over the 30% income, your next step is to double check that they can meet qualifying population 4, and that means, do they have a risk factor? And there's verifications of what that means. This one here, 50% and evidence of instability, homeless A through G, and that is the same. So going back to this again, not gonna make you dizzy. That's one of these 7 conditions. So a 50% household that meets one of these 7 conditions can be qualified. So, whoops, going back to income calculator. You can print this sucker out by exporting to the PDF, and this will give you an income calculation worksheet that is for their file to show that all of the income that was used and their income limit. Any questions on income? That was a lot.
And that form has to be signed, right?
This one does have a signature to it, yes.
So we have the calculator training video. That's already been disseminated. I put that in the chat. We also have a guide document that's coming because the existing guide document, Faith, you'll have to remind me, but I believe it's 57 pages long.
Yeah, and it's really complicated and has like a bunch of appendices and definitions, and I didn't want y'all to have to deal with that. So I'm gonna make it all pretty with pictures and simplify it for everybody.
I think it would be awesome to hear from the folks who have ESG and NDHG, like how is this comparing to what you do in those programs? What differences are you seeing? Oh, I can call on you too if nobody wanted to volunteer. Okay, go for it, Bonnie.
Okay, so my point of view with the CPD calculator, I've used this in the past when we had home funds back in 2019. This version's just easier. And so this just validates the documentation that we pull from, that we receive from the clients for ESG and DHG, and we're inputting it in there just to validate that we didn't do a miscalculation. So that's what's nice about this.
Thank you, Bonnie. How about others? Andrea and Bismarck, Stacy and Bismarck, what are your guys' thoughts? You have ESG right now.
Yeah, we don't have ESG right now. It was quite a few years ago. But I believe that we didn't have to do the specific calculator. I know that Amy actually with Hoppewa uses the HUD that calculator, so familiar with that. But yeah, it looks like super user friendly. I think it's going to be really good. A good resource. So.
Yeah, this is Denise for Dickinson Williston. When we had home funds, kind of mirroring what Bonnie just said, using the income calculator was great to have an actual document that then had all the calculations. We had the client sign it and used it for the audit purposes. And that calculator was just super slick to use. And I was glad to hear you say use ESG instead of home because Jennifer, because when I was reviewing the training, I was like, okay, this is going to be a question that needs to have an answer because the calculator will do things differently depending on the HUD program. So
Yeah, so interestingly enough, home requires the use of adjusted gross income, and then that determines the rent amount, and you don't even have to worry about that for this home ARP, which is why we said just use homeless prevention because that's as straightforward as we can make it. So yeah, good.
Other questions, folks? That was a lot of information. What questions do you guys have?
So I would recommend as you could see, I played in the CPD income calculator a number of times, creating some test families and things like that. Please feel free to go in there and start messing around a little bit. I was today years old when I discovered that I could click on a certain area. I got to show you this because it was very comical that I could do that today. But so I used to have trouble getting back to the previous page, and you can click right here and it takes you back without accidentally going out of the entire thing and having to start over. And I'm like, oh, I kind of like that. So anyway.
I'm glad you showed us that because I know that not everybody that has used the calculator knows about that.
I had no idea, but I don't use it on the regular. I use it to try to show people how you can have this versus a manual income calculation worksheet. So for our properties that are in the multifamily world, they're required to have some sort of an income summary. And if they would just use the CPD calculator, it would generate and then they could have the people sign. But we have also a manual one on our website that they can use. It looks exactly the same, pretty much. So it's a thing that you have people sign this summary of their income. They're testing again that they're not leaving out income. So it's a way again to just make sure everybody is trying to be honest about the income that they're receiving. And I know for our ESG world and people who are struggling in crisis, that their income is sometimes you don't think of income as income because it's getting it once in a while. That doing DoorDash once in a while is because you're trying to pay a bill, that is income. So people forget about that.
Someone probably already said this, but Please don't wait until you're sitting in front of your first client to practice the calculator, because that's going to be a terrible time. You need to practice today, tomorrow, sometime, get used to it. Think of your weird situations that come up that you've done with income calculation and um, go from there. And when you have questions, because you're probably going to have questions, let us know sooner rather than later. Any other questions for Jennifer or me or whoever? Oh, Tom, I see you're unmuted there.
This isn't an income question, but what's the program eligibility policy on non-citizens and undocumented individuals?
That's a Jennifer question there.
That is a Jennifer question because I had to ask HUD that question because it was not clear in the guidance. So let me go read what they said.
We have to have some sort of proof of their identification. So that's like a driver's license, social security card, Medicaid card, I think. So unless if they don't have one of those, then we can't serve them.
So I tell you what, I think we need to look at the guidance that HUD gave us because what I'm reading is that supportive services, there's a reminder out there that proof of residency is not required since the individuals and family are either homeless or at risk, according to our CPD person. So I think we need to talk through that citizenship would not be required, but what you're going to have a hard time with is they need to have some form of identification to apply for housing. So whatever that looks like, they have to be able to pass a background check and things like that. So you're going to have those kinds of documents for them to get through property management.
Okay, so that's what's gonna cut it as identification, and I guess you answered that. All right. And the reason I ask is out here out west, we're getting a lot of, I mean, besides Fargo, but we're getting a lot of non-English speaking folks coming out.
And with a lot of those clients too, it'd probably be tough to have a positive outcome too, if they don't have a lot of those documents, you know, how can they become successful? So those are discussions, kind of one-on-one discussions to really glean through that and have all the information documented. Asking you earlier, does Buddy have a question? He's got his hand up all session long, so I don't know. He looks like he wants some attention.
That threw me off a couple of times, Irv. That was pretty great. Are there other questions? Faith, could you please go ahead and launch the Zoom poll? And then when it's all done, Faith, if you publish the results or if you share the results, everybody will be able to see it. Okay. So take a few minutes, please, folks, and fill out it's just 4 quick questions.
It popped up, right?
Yeah, folks are filling it in. I can see it.
Okay.
I don't think like Jen, you don't see it, right? Jen Henderson?
Oh, I thought.
Oh, you did? You see it like as people are filling in the results?
Oh, I see when you popped up the question, but I can't see the results in motion.
Got
Oh,
it.
okay.
Got it. We've got a few more answers coming in, so please do take a second here to fill this out, folks. Well, Faith will publish the results here in a minute, but the good news is that as a group, we're feeling pretty stinking good about identifying the QPs. So that's great
Oh, yeah,
news,
that is
right?
great.
Exactly. That's such great news. Ensuring accuracy in documentation is definitely a high concern for this group, and understanding policies. And we're gonna get there, folks.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna go ahead and end the poll because I think I calculated out the correct number of people who are supposed to have taken it.
cool. Thank
Um,
you.
if it'll let me. There we go. And those are the results.
Thanks everybody for filling that in. It just helps us really kind of gauge where you're at. If you're comfortable, you're welcome to unmute and share. You can throw something in the chat as well. 4 of you said you were going to share in the chat what you're most excited about. So go ahead and put that in there. Oh no, I'm sorry. 1 person said they were excited about something else. Safari, it doesn't look like you have a lot of HMIS folks following your excitement. Awesome. Directors on the call, I think it's important to note balancing home ARP with other responsibilities is up there as something that's feeling very challenging for folks. So we'll want to be mindful of that. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing that, Faith. You can take that down. Folks, thank you. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you all being part of this new statewide program. This has been a really long time in the making, and it's really exciting to see it all come to fruition. You're going to get copies of the slide deck for today. Remember, we come back on Thursday and we're going to be talking about different forms that are going to be required in the program. Please do spend time with the materials that have been distributed. Practice the calculator. We all have ownership in this, and part of our ownership is reading the materials and being up to speed on expectations. And lastly, I know we're in really good hands with Bridget and Jen in the team at Housing Finance. So I want to thank you folks for all of the work that went into preparing for this conversation. Everybody, thank you again for being here, and we will see you all on Thursday. We all have our marching orders. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.